was Brexit and the state. So what's your assessment of where we are with Brexit and the state?
So what we were trying to do in this is not relitigate the rights or wrongs of Brexit. It depends very much on what you thought you were voting for. But Brexit undoubtedly meant that the UK state had to take on a lot of functions, new responsibilities. And what we want to do was say, 8 years after that referendum vote coming up, 3 years after the UK entered into its new sort of definitive trading relationship with the EU, how far had the UK state got in taking on those new responsibilities, using, if you like, some of its Brexit freedom? So the first thing to note is that Brexit has expanded the size of the British state. Might not be quite what people thought they were voting for, but we've seen a really big expansion in the size of the civil service.
Because there's more for them to do, presumably.
Because there's more for them to do. Not entirely because of Brexit. We've had COVID and things like that as well. But it has led to a sort of very significant increase in the number of civil servants. So that's the first bit. But it's quite interesting that even despite that, it's clear that the UK is struggling to come to terms with some of the new functions. We looked at quite a lot of the UK's regulators, regulating differently, better was one of the things that you might have hoped for from Brexit. We were no longer having to negotiate changes with 27 other member states with their own national interests. But one of the things that's really interesting, this was confirmed by another study by a health think tank a couple of weeks ago, is that there lacks of regulatory capacity. So we actually see, despite the promise of being able to do things faster than the EU on medicines approvals, for example, the UK is now approving medicines less fast than the European Medicines Agency. So it's really quite interesting to see that governments set up new bodies as part of Brexit and then really rethought their relationship with them. So that's been very confused. One of the areas where you might have thought there was a really big prize to be had from Brexit, everybody in the UK thought that the EU's common agricultural policy was really devised by the original 6 member states for their benefit. It had been reformed, but the UK was always bristling at the common agricultural policy. But actually, our attempts to invent our own local homegrown way of supporting agriculture are really bogged down in a very long and quite contested transition. Farmers, many of whom may have voted for Brexit, are pretty unhappy with where we're getting. Environmentalists think it's going to be falling short of the initial very big promises that were made by Michael Gove, who was Theresa May's Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. So it's really very much still, whatever politicians might want to think, is very much a work in not very happy progress, I think it's fair to say.
And will be, after the next election, whoever wins as well, presumably.
Yes. I mean, I think we're thinking that the 2024 election, assuming the election is in 2024, might just creep into 2025, will be the first non-Brexit election for quite some time. 2015, David Cameron put centre stage that referendum pledge. 2017 was about Brexit. 2019 was about Brexit. 2024 will be fought more on issues like the cost of living, the economy, maybe immigration for some voters. Neither political party will want to major on Brexit, but I fear both of them will have to work out how they're going to take this forward after the election.
We will talk more about a particular aspect of it later on in the programme. Eugene, I wanted to talk to you about your new book, which I think was published this week.
Just hit the market.
So we are very much sort
on
of
the shelf.
Hot off the presses here. This is the Damascus events, the 1860 massacre and the destruction of the old Ottoman world. What's the principal message within those pages?
Well, I think the principal draw for me in writing this book, first of all, was getting to work on a city like Damascus. It's just such a richly historic city. It was already an old city at the time the Bible was being written. So to come to terms with that, and then I launched into this project discovering volumes of lost reports from mid-19th century Damascus by the most intelligent Arab of his day, a guy named Mikhail Mishaka. And that exciting discovery set me down the path of trying to collect other testimonies